So big changes are going to be discussed over in the ACC, according to its commissioner, Jim Phillips. Not the Florida State, Clemson want to leave the ACC sort of stuff. That's still an ongoing debacle and such. We'll see how that all plays out. But a couple different people have reported on this matter. So Brandon Marcello tweeted out, interesting idea. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips brought up with a few of us. Crown the regular season conference champion and reward them with a college football playoff AQ, automatic qualifier. On quote-unquote championship weekend, pit second and third place teams for a spot in the CFP. This year, that would have meant SMU automatically in as the regular season champ, and Miami would have played Clemson as a college football playoff play-in game in the ACC championship game of sorts. So, I understand where Jim Phillips would be coming from here. This is never going to get by the Big Ten or the SEC. What this move reads as to me is an attempt by the ACC to ensure they can keep getting two teams into the playoff. Because they got two teams in this year in a season where I thought the Big 12 and ACC would both be one-bid leagues. Turns out the Big 12 was a one-bid league, and the ACC was a two-bid league thanks to Clemson. But had Clemson lost to SMU in what was a wild and crazy football game, then it would have been a one-bid league this year. And so all these conferences have their own competing interests with the other leagues as they try to put together this playoff and figure out the rules and all this sort of stuff. The more teams you get in the playoff, the more money you get for the conference. It's a pretty simple calculation there for Jim Phillips. His job is to have the strongest league possible and make the most amount of money he possibly can, whether that's in media rights negotiations or keeping certain brands around or getting teams into the playoff. And Greg Sankey has been a master at this for a very long time because his teams have understood how to manipulate the schedules and get themselves into favorable positions so that, hey, you're only going to play 8 conference games. And sure, some of you play a legitimate ACC opponent like South Carolina, Clemson, or Florida State as what would have been your 9th conference game, but some of you are Alabama and you play whoever you want, quite frankly. And it doesn't have to be that tough for everyone. But now it's not true across the board, but there are key examples, Alabama most notably, where that is the case. So the reason I don't see this getting by the SEC and the Big Ten is because after getting just 3 teams into the playoff this year, I don't think Greg Sankey is a happy camper. And look, it's his job to lobby for the conference he is running and argue for its superiority. I am glad the playoff committee for this 2024 season looked at everything at hand and said, yeah, you don't have the same dominance that you used to, so we're not giving the same benefit of the doubt to these 9-3 teams who have too many bad losses. And South Carolina didn't have they got blown out by Ole Miss on their home field, but that's a different kind of bad loss compared to, say, Kentucky or Vanderbilt or Oklahoma or anybody like that. So the ACC trying to get 2 in, coming in the wake of, the SEC not being happy they only got 3 teams in, I don't see how this passes. Because remember, Heather Dinich of ESPN reported that changes to the structure of the college football playoff for 2025 are not going to arrive. So next season, we look like, as of now, we're going to be stuck with the same format we had this year that people were rightly criticizing all over the place, myself included. Because what you had in this year's format was the number 1 seed, Oregon, who had the best regular season, only undefeated team in FBS college football. They did not have the most advantageous path. They had a long layoff. Home playoff game was not afforded to them. And then they had to play a team who's about to go win the national championship game. Now, that's not an excuse for how Oregon played in the Rose Bowl. They got outcoached across the board. Every single coaching matchup, head coach to head coach, OC to DC, and DC to OC. I mean, it was a coaching clinic by this Buckeye staff, why I think they're going to win the national championship game. But that format isn't going anywhere. But then Jim Phillips is saying, well, we could put, an AQ on the regular season champ. Like, whoa. That sounds like a sneaky way for the ACC and Big 12 to lock up two teams each getting into the college football playoff. There is no way that flies. So another thing that is being proposed, this according to Pete Thamel over at ESPN, quote, Phillips said the ACC could consider giving its regular season champion a bye and have the teams that finish second or third in the league standings play in the ACC championship game. That's what Brandon Marcello had tweeted out. He said another possibility is having the top 4 teams play on the final weekend of the regular season, first place versus fourth place, and second place versus third place, with the winners playing the following weekend in the ACC championship game. Now, that's more intriguing. What I object to there, because I am a regular season purist sort of guy, is if that's taking place on the last week of the regular season, you're disrupting rivalry week. That's when Clemson plays South Carolina. What if they're in the fold there? You're going to reschedule the South Carolina game? By the way, scheduling-wise, I don't think it's impossible, but that's pretty tricky because you don't know before the year who those 4 teams are going to be. Because remember, he said play on the final weekend of the regular season. So you're going to have teams play 11 games and then in a week's time have to set up all the logistics for an entire week of scheduling. Football schedules are made a long ways in advance. I don't know if that's a hurdle that is incapable of being overcome to enact this sort of plan, but it's certainly a hurdle that popped into my mind. But the bigger one for me is I don't want to disrupt rivalry weekend. I applaud the creativity that is just, these are just proposals, discussions that will take place. I applaud that if you are the ACC, because I don't think everything in college football as is makes for the best possible product all the time. But that one, I don't think I'm on board with that one. And I don't think the Big Ten or SEC are going to be on board with the first thing where the ACC, which if they were to adopt it, I bet you Brett Yormark would start talking about it over as the commissioner of the Big 12. Don't think that would be something the biggest 2 leagues are going to go for, because they want to get most of their teams into the college football playoff, for as many as they can, I should say. So once again, college football needs a commissioner. I would do it. I'd do it. There are a lot of other people that would do it, but I would do it. I want to close with this interesting story. So the transfer portal can be easily circumnavigated. This is a very funny story, quite frankly. So Xavier Lucas is a defensive back at Wisconsin. He has now transferred to Miami. So he wanted to transfer. Wisconsin wasn't letting him. There was a paperwork issue. They didn't want him to go. I'm not privy to all the details there. But bottom line is he wasn't able to enter the portal as everybody else was. We seem to have one of these stories every offseason. You know, there was the North Carolina wide receiver that couldn't get eligible for just the dumbest, worst reasons ever and such. And so Lucas wants to transfer. They say no. And then Xavier Lucas realizes, well, what if I just unenroll from the University of Wisconsin and then enroll at the University of Miami, not as an athlete, as a student? And the NCAA said, yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. So the portal must make it easier. But anytime a player this just goes to show you once again, the transfer portal gets compared to free agency in the NFL. They are not one and the same. In the NFL, players can get franchise tagged. I don't know if that's exactly what Wisconsin was trying to do here. They can get franchise tagged, and then they have to come back and play for that team and whatnot, and they can't go elsewhere. But I just got a kick out of that. That they said, nope, you can't enter the portal. You're not going to be able. So what if I just drop out of school and then start enrolling in a school elsewhere? Well, I guess we can't do anything about that. The NCAA is not long for the road. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.